Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Today, we are going to study another important topic in academic writing and translation, which is translating from oral to written language. Today's lesson will cover 7 main parts, starting with an introduction. Then, explain what does mean translating from oral to written language. After that, mention its purpose. After that, I will present the key differences between oral and written translation. Following this, I will cover the translation techniques from oral to written language. In addition, I will highlight some examples of oral to written translation in education. And finally, I will conclude the presentation. Let us begin with the introduction. Translating from oral to written language is an important skill that helps learners move from spoken expression to organized writing communication. It allows students to record ideas clearly, develop their writing ability, and understand how speech can be transformed into a more accurate and formal text. So, what do we mean by translating from oral to written language? This process is usually called transcription, or when changing languages, called sight translation or interpretation. Involves moving from a spontaneous context-dependent way of speaking to a more structured and permanent written form. It means turning spoken language into written words, and it's often supported by oral rehearsal, sentence planning, and careful transcription. Research in education shows that speaking your ideas first can help you to organize them better and improve the fluency and structure of your writing. This process requires changing the register of communication, making it more formal and detailed, which means the language becomes more formal, more precise, and usually more detailed than in casual conversation. The main purpose of translating from oral to written language is to turn spoken ideas into something permanent, clearer, and easier to study or share. It also helps people organize their thoughts, improve accuracy, and communicate the same meanings to readers in reliable written form. First, translating oral language into writing helps preserve information. Spoken words can be recorded in stable written record, such as notes, transcripts, titles, or classroom texts that can be kept and reused. Second, it improves understanding. Spontaneous speech is often fast and informal, but when it's turned into written text, it can be organized, reserved, and made more precise. Third, it supports communication across time and space. Translating oral language into writing can reach people who were not present when the original speech happened, such as students, researchers, or readers in different places. Finally, translating oral language into writing supports learning because speaking first can help generate ideas before writing them down. This oral stage often helps produce clearer and more organized written work. In simple terms, oral language is usually natural and fast, while written language needs more structure and precision. Translating from oral to written language bridges this gap by turning what is said into something that can be read, edited, stored, or shared. Now, let us look at the key differences between oral and written language, which are essential for effective translation. First, structure. Written language usually has more complex sentences, precise punctuation, and formal syntax. In contrast, oral language is often fragmented, repetitive, and made up of short, simple sentences. This difference means that when translating speech into writing, we need to expand and structure ideas more clearly. Second, context. Oral communication relies heavily on the context. Speakers use body language, facial expressions, and annotations to convey meanings, while in written language these extraverbal cues are not visible. So the text must express those meanings explicitly through words. Third, permanence. Written text is permanent and can be revised. In written text, we can read, edit, and improve it multiple times. On the other hand, spoken language is usually temporary and disappears once it's said. This makes writing a powerful tool for recording, storing, and sharing information over time. Fourth, vocabulary. There is a difference in vocabulary. Writing language usually uses more precise, varied, and technical vocabulary suited to academic or formal contexts. Everyday spoken language tends to use simpler and more common words and expressions. So, oral or advisory support for understanding text without full rendering. Let's move to the techniques of translating from oral to written language. Techniques of translating from oral to written language include listening carefully, taking notes, organizing ideas, and then writing the speech in clear written form. The main goal in translation studies is to preserve the original meaning as accurately as possible, while adapting the language to fit the style and structure of written text. The common techniques of translating from oral to written language are: first, listening and segmentation. The first technique is listening carefully and segmenting the spoken message. This means breaking the continuous flow of speech to small and clear idea units before writing. Each unit can then be translated separately. Second, note taking. Note taking is very helpful. Students can quickly jot down keywords, numbers, names, and sequence marks, such as first, then, or finally. These notes act as a guide and help students to keep the main ideas and their order accurate when they write. Third, literal rendering. Literal rendering means keeping the wording close to spoken original when the structure works well in writing. This technique is useful when the original sentence is clear and can be transferred directly into the written text. Fourth, paraphrasing. However, sometimes direct wording sounds unnatural in writing. In those cases, paraphrasing is necessary. Students can restate the same idea using smoother and more natural writing language, while still keeping the same meaning. Another technique is recording. In spontaneous speech, sentences can appear in confusing order. When translating into writing, you may need to change the sentence order to match written conversations and make the text easier to follow. Sixth, condensation and expansion. Sometimes spoken language is repetitive or too brief. In writing, you can condense repeated parts or expand idea by adding few words for clarity. This technique helps the text become more concise and more complete. The last technique is editing and polishing. Editing and polishing is a critical step. After writing the first version, you should revise grammar, punctuation, and style. This stage turns a rough written version into a clear, accurate, and well-organized text. In short, all these techniques help learners turn spoken language into effective writing communication. Now, let's look at some examples of oral to written translation in education. These examples include turning teacher's spoken explanation into class notes, converting a student's oral summary into a written paragraph, and writing down the detected sentences during language practice. The first example is teacher talk to writing notes. One common example is when students listen to teacher's spoken explanation and then write a summary in their notebooks. This practice helps students to record key information, organize ideas, and create written references they can review later. Second example is oral rehearsal to essay writing. This is another example when learners first say their ideas loud, then turn them into written response, paragraph, or essay. Another example, which is detection activities. Detection is also a classic case of oral to written translation. A teacher speaks a sentence or a short passage, and students write it down as correctly as possible. This activity improves listening accuracy, spelling, punctuation, and sentence structure. The third example is storytelling to writing. In storytelling tasks, students first tell a story orally, using simple sentences and their own words. Then they produce the same story as a written narrative. This activity helps students move from spontaneous speech to structured sequential writing. The last example is subtitles or transcripts tasks. In listening activities, students might hear a spoken passage or dialogue and then converted it into written text, such as subtitles or transcripts. This activity not only supports the accuracy, but also helps students practice organizing ideas in clear writing format. In conclusion, oral to written translation is a valuable classroom and language learning technique because it connects speaking with writing in practical way. It also helps learners improve fluency, accuracy, and confidence, while turning spoken ideas into clear written form. Thank you for your attention.